So this is the problem with this digital ID thing, right? I mean, the bill's proposed by Parliament, right? And well, it's sponsored by the Labour want to get it through, right? It's, Starmer and his Tony Blair crew and his apparently Fiona Rose-Diamond says it's to do with the United Nations, right? But whoever's behind it, they're wanting to try and get it through the government. And they can only get it through the government if so many MPs vote it through. Now, the government already had a consultation on it, and they always do a consultation when they're going to do something like that, right? So they're already going to people to ask them about it. Now, when you're doing petitions, the petition is normally trying to get the government to act and do something, right? But with digital ID, they're already going to be voting on it, right? So what you really need to do is get your MPs not to vote for it. So the other debate really isn't coming to any decision. It's just basic that they're already going to be having the consultation and the whole hearings about it anyway. So it's kind of additional when you're doing it on something that the government was already working on, right? Because it's not like a private bill that you're wanting to try and get your own private bill through or your own piece of legislation, right? Public petitions is kind of a little bit like private bills, but maybe for a general remedy. Now, what I don't like about these debates is if it's not something that the government are already working on themselves, right? If it's something that you've proposed, that tampon tax thing that Laura Corrigan did, right? She gets so many signatures, she got a debate, and then, Theresa May backed her up on it, and then they got it actioned, right? That wasn't anything to do with what the government were already working on. The thing with the digital ID is that you've got this huge petition, you've got multiple petitions, and then you've got Big Brother Watcher doing their own campaigns, raising awareness of it, getting signatures, getting comments from the public and submitting them to Parliament. And then Silkie Carlo, and I'm not too sure exactly under what premise, when Silkie Carlo was giving, she got to participate and give evidence herself, which was quite impressive. And I think Fiona Rose-Diamond might have been a little bit felt that she was outdone by Silkie Carlo at that point, because Fiona Rose-Diamond went into the digital ID debate that was from the big petition and started shouting and talking, and she got thrown out. So it was almost I got the impression that she was trying to sort of step up to, what Silkie Carlo got to speak when she had that other separate meeting. I don't know if that came about particularly from the Big Brother Watch petition itself and the evidence. If she managed to get that, I'm not sure how it came about, but she's got connections with David Davis and one of the members of the House of Lords anyway. But nonetheless, all of the petitions on one certain subject are meant to be amalgamated together. That's meant to be the basis and principle, and the committee is supposed to pass them to a department who deals with it. Now, the thing is, a department's already dealing with digital ID because they did the consultation, right? So you'd have thought the area of government that were dealing with the consultation and everything like that, taking evidence, would have been passed all the petitions and all the evidence to add weight to that, right? And you're only kind of meant to amalgamate the petitions into one debate. So I'm not exactly too sure what was going on there. But nonetheless, this is the thing, right? No matter how many petitions you have and how many debates, if you can't persuade an MP to vote a certain way, then it's pointless, right? But the thing is, the whole government are going to be voting on digital ID as it is. But if it's not an act of law that you want putting through, or if it's something that not that many MPs are going to turn up to have a say on either way, if it's something just less important, or you're wanting a general remedy from something, or if it's a private bill or whatever, committees were usually meant to make decisions on things anyway, as a committee or, as a body, because they can make orders for things to be done, a little bit like councillors can. You can have a full council assembled, or you can have a councillor who's got powers themselves to make orders. MPs are supposed to have powers to act for us. Like they're supposed to be able to get us documents, or can they sign off stuff to the ombudsman, which previously was petitions to Parliament anyway. And then a minister can have an inquiry, or they can raise awareness of issues, or they can if you think something's been wrong by Parliament, but when you're actually acting and doing your own work towards Parliament, like canvassing and activities and messing the civil process and things like that, they're meant to help you, support you in your work and things like that. That's what casework is, right? So there's all different types of things MPs can do, a little bit like councillors, but not a lot of them really make full use of the powers. It seems like they're more interested in having these business meetings and getting investment in the area from corporate and business companies rather than helping individuals with their campaigns, particularly when those MPs might be voting one way or another anyway on a matter. So, it all seems kind of... I'm not convinced that these petition meeting debates are that useful, because really, usually if you can get a petition... you're meant to... Parliament are supposed to give remedy to all petitions. Every petition is meant to get a remedy if you've got a grievance, right? And some of them you don't need large numbers of signatures for if it's got strong evidence to prove something. Because if you're trying to prove something is true, and then because on the merit of it being true, then it would suggest that the government have to do something, like correct something or resolve something. You only ever really need large numbers of signatures if you are wanting to prove that a large body really do support something. Like, if your whole town says this or that, well, does the whole town really say this or that? Well, you prove that they really do when they've got all the signatures, right? But if you don't need the whole town to sign something, if it's like about, the government have done this or that wrong, then you don't need the whole town to sign it to say the government have done this or that wrong if you've got the evidence to prove that the government have done this or that wrong, because the evidence itself is strong enough to prove it, and you don't need to be backed up by the people because, it's like an illegal case, right? Why do you need 100 witnesses, to say something if, it was quite obvious that they've done it? But for political matters that concern large numbers of people, and if it requires all of the people to consent or show that they need it, or a larger percentage, things like in local councils building of houses, but this is, look, when you've got those Inquiries Act inquiries, it says that it can be either A or B, either evidence to show that there's large public concern. Well, that's like all your signatures to show that a large amount of people want an inquiry, or just facts to substantiate that, that something has happened and there needs to be an inquiry. So it can be based on evidence of fact or evidence of the public concern. That's how petitions are sort of judged anyway. But the more signatures you've got, the better. And the whole point about petitions, it even says this in the earlier committee reports, like the 1973, I think it's the 1973 committee report, says that, petitions are a good way to raise awareness of causes and things like that, But this is the thing. They're not letting us raise awareness of the causes when they're not publishing them and not letting us share them on e-petitions. And they know that petitions really usually don't result in any action, but it's worth it if you can get the publicity or information out there. If you want to public to know about particular laws or acts or things that they need to know, like, your rights for petitioning. And that's the problem that's happening now with the censorship. They've trying to take petitioning out of the chamber and create this new unit that deals with it, that's under this policy, which is not the judicial actual rights that you're meant to be using. And they've reordered it all, and all the sharing part of it, they've kind of captured it under this policy. And it's all done unlawfully because it doesn't comply with the observation of due process of law 1368. It's not allowing the community to come together on matters of grievances. It's obstructing them from coming together, and nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to be bothered, and no one seems to listen. And it's really disappointing. I mean, what's the point in speaking to the phone now? He's just trying to get this down on record. I mean, Colchester Council Watch are talking about the Bill of Rights, but they're arguing over ridiculous interpretation of parts of it, which is pointless. That you don't need to get into that much interpretation of it. It's really straightforward and simple. And I don't know why they're arguing over these little stupid synonyms and things like that, pronouns and synonyms in it, when it's there for a very obvious, blatant reason. Once you know why it was enacted and what was there in the first, it doesn't actually really create anything new. It's more like affirmations, really.